Hey, are you looking for a rugged e-bike with upgraded features that can handle just about any adventure? Today we're going to take a look at the Modbikes Black from Austin, Texas. Check this thing out. What's up guys, Eric here with At Home in the Future. We check out the latest gear and gadgets for life's adventures. Hey, before we get started with this review, I want to let you know that the folks at Modbikes did provide this bike for us to review, but that in no way influences the stuff we're going to talk about in this video, so let's get to it. So if you're in the market for an e-bike, you probably already know there's an absolute ton of options out there these days. But what if you want something more robust? What if you're gonna have some adventures in this thing, or use it as like a daily driver where you're spending time in the city or commuting a little bit or doing more off-road frequent stuff with it? Well, I think that's where the folks at Modbikes come in. So they make some really cool stuff. You can go on their website and check out some of their really interesting designs. A lot of them look like mini motorcycles. They even have one with a sidecar. It's wild. But the one that really jumped out to me that I wanted to check out for this review today is the Modbikes Black. What's really compelling to me about this thing is it kind of has a classic mountain bike feel with full suspension, but all the power that comes with the e-bike. Lots of little features and components that looks like it really adds up into a compelling package that make this bike something really interesting and I think actually kind of unique in the space. I spent most of the summer hanging out with this bike, so this review is going to be all about my experience with it, the things I like, the things I don't like, and whether or not it's the right bike for you. As with any e-bike, I think assembly is a good place to start because unless you actually live in Austin, you're probably going to order this in the mail. And the good news is it's free shipping, it's fast, it only took a few days to show up, and like pretty much any bike that comes in the mail, it came in a big wide box. So assembling this thing actually only took me about 45 minutes, and most of that was just kind of going slow and following the video. They do have a little code in the box that you can scan and watch the kind of a walkthrough on their site. Now to be clear, they would rather you probably take it to a bike shop and get it assembled, and me being DIY, of course, I'm just going to dive in and follow the video and put it together. If you've ever assembled an e-bike before, the assembly for this goes pretty much the same way. The only difference really is this actually comes with a few more helpful tools, I think. They actually sent like a fairly nice wrench and some little gadgets and stuff to help you put it together. And there's a little more nuance because there's so many tweaks you can make with this, especially how like the handlebars set up and just angles of stuff to kind of make it fit your body. So I spent a little bit more time just making sure I got that dialed in exactly right for my height and my frame. Also noticed the seat post that came with it, even though the bike supposedly supports heights between 5'4" and 7'1", which is a huge range. For me, it still felt a little bit tall. I'm about 5'10", a fairly normal medium size, but I did have to take the seat post and just take a Dremel to it and cut it a little bit shorter so I felt like the height was right for me. But all in all, got it put together really fast, no time at all, and was ready to ride, like I said, about 45 minutes or so. Now we're going to spend most of this video talking about how it rides, the stuff I like, the stuff I don't like, but before we get into all of that, let's take a deep dive of the bike itself and I'll show you all the different components and how it works. Here's the Black in all of its glory, and the first thing I'll say about this is how much I dig the look of this thing. There's just something about the mix of kind of classic design elements and the leather touches and the all black feel and everything that just makes this a really unique look. It's got a little bit of a mountain bike vibe, a little bit of a motorcycle type feel. It's just something that I really enjoy and the kind of thing I like showing off to my friends and always get comments on. But let's walk around this thing and I'll show you all the different features that you may be curious about or maybe can't tell just looking at a product page on the website. We'll start up here with the front fork and check out the shocks down here. We have Suntour XCT shocks, which you can lock and you can change all the preload and stuff for those. It's really great. We have these nice Kenda tires that are 3 inches wide, so not technically like fat tire tires. They feel like a beefed up mountain bike tire. They are 27.5 inches by 3, really feel great. And also have like a puncture resistant layer too, which you'll appreciate if you're, well, just doing anything stupid with this thing. You can see the headlight down here. I believe this is a 300 lumen headlight. It has been super bright. I haven't ridden a ton at night really, but when I have, it's been plenty bright and it's really easy to change the angle of that too if you need to. In the middle here we have the battery, and I think that's one thing I like about this. You know, it still has that electric bike look where it's got a little bit thicker of a frame to kind of hide the battery and especially to hide the motor, which we'll get to here in a second. But I love the way the battery integrates into this frame. I love the lettering, the kind of cursive look on here. That's kind of a signature for mod bikes if you look at their other models. Really nice. It has a space here on the front where you can mount a water bottle. I'm using it for actually their mod bikes edition of the CD lock, foldy lock, folding bike lock. And I've really enjoyed having this. It looks like it's actually part of the bike frame just because of the coloring and the style of it. But you can pretty easily just pop this in and out. It slides right out, folds out when you need it. You can slide it back in. Now this is a lighter folding lock. CD Lock even actually came out with a new one called Foldy Lock Forever, which is a little bit thicker plates. It weighs a little bit more, it takes up a little bit more space, but maybe something if you live in a high crime area, you may want a more secure option. But for riding around town and campgrounds, this is a really nice option that just blends in with the frame. You don't even notice that it's there. But I've enjoyed having that as an extra layer of security, and I think it looks cool. So really neat. The battery connects up here, and we'll get into kind of how this works with the display and how you turn things on here in a minute. But you kind of twist to take it off the frame, twist to put back on. The key for the battery, which you can pop it on with, is here on the other side of the frame. And of course, charging ports, I believe, are also on the other side. I'll hit those when we go to that other side as well. So this is not a hub drive like a lot of the other e-bikes out there in the market, the ones you may be used to. This is a mid-drive, which makes it one of the more higher end systems for getting the power to the pedals. So it's got magnetic sensors that senses your rate of pedaling. That motor is contained down here. I'll talk about more later in this review, but I really like the way that makes the center of gravity in this bike feel. Just your kind of straightforward pedals. We've got air shocks for the full suspension back here in the back, which you'll really notice if you do stupid stuff on it or go over curbs and that sort of thing. I've really enjoyed having it. Typical kind of bigger motorcycle style kickstand that you'll find on these. The brakes on this, you can see some of the rotors here in the front and the back. They are hydraulic brakes, which leads to some awesome stopping power. And we'll keep moving on around here. One of the biggest features, and you'll notice this bag sitting here, one of the biggest features of this bike that I enjoy, and we'll probably talk about this later too, is the rack that comes standard on this. So rather than feeling like an aftermarket accessory that you may choose to add to your bike, this rear rack is super flexible. It has a ton of accessories that are actually designed to go on it. So this bag is one of them. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it one-handed, but this actually clicks into the bottom of this. You just slide to click it in. You can kind of see the pegs down here in the bottom of that and the space for that here. But when you click that bag on, there's a quick release down here that you just pull on to release that. And it just makes for a really nice accessory if you're commuting or just going somewhere you need to throw some snacks or your electronics or whatever else you need to tote around. That's a pretty great fit for that. It also comes with this elastic thing, which is normally kind of an aftermarket accessory you may want to pick up. It comes standard on this, which I like, because a lot of times you just want to throw something on the rack and drive it to the other side of the campsite and take it off. So that's pretty convenient. Let's move around to the other side and I'll show you a few more things. So this does come standard with not only a rear reflector, but a tail light. This does not activate when you squeeze the brakes, but it does light up when you have your headlights on, which makes for really nice visibility at night. You can see the crankshaft and all that on the other side. I mentioned those charging ports in the battery earlier. Here's where if you leave the battery connected down here, you can just pop that off and plug in the charger and get things charged up. Now this is a really high capacity Samsung battery, and the range on this I believe is about 60 miles. If you live in the city or you're doing some heavy duty adventuring or commuting, that's going to be a feature you really enjoy. One thing I want to mention too is how nice the saddle is that comes with this thing. It's this nice kind of leathery feeling gel seat that's super squishy. It kind of, man, it just really helps with that numb butt you get when you're riding around too much. I've really enjoyed the saddle on this. Again, that's something you can add as an aftermarket thing, but it's kind of a theme for the mod bike stuff in general, and especially the black. So a lot of the accessories and a lot of the components you find in this are already upgraded, and you can upgrade them even further if you want to. But that's a feature I really enjoy. Let's check out the handlebar and the screen, all the UI and cool stuff up here. We can start with this left side. So this is, of course, your left grip, your brakes and everything, and this is the UI that you use to interact with the screen. We'll come back to that here in just a second, and I'll walk you through it. On the right side, we have your shifters, which is kind of this paddle system, and you can adjust that however you like. To get it dialed in. I don't find myself shifting a whole lot, which I just don't on e-bikes in general. I typically kind of leave it at 7 and just go for it. But if you live in an area that has a lot of terrain variation, that's something you'll probably use a lot more. One thing you've probably heard me complain about before in other reviews, some bikes, especially nicer e-bikes, tend to come with crappy bells, but this one's really cool. I really like the tone of it, really easy to actuate with my thumb. I really dig that thing. Pretty cool. And you got these kind of faux leather grips here. I like the stem on this. It's also fully adjustable where you can change it to match your riding style and height. Really easy to tweak that, and you kind of do that during the setup process too. All right, let's take a second and go through the UI here. You notice we got this big screen here. Maybe, I'm sure there's an exact measure here. It's maybe 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, but it is backlit. It's hard to tell on my video here right now. It's kind of like a Timex watch, you know, that Indiglo feature. It has that sort of backlight. You can actually change the level on that, and I'll show you that here in a second. But you have your trip distance at the bottom, your miles per hour, your pedal assist, your battery level, and then your wattage. So it's a really simple display UI to check out. And again, you can control all that over here just by going through changing your pedal assist by pushing up or down, the plus or minus button, and then actually turn the bike on and off by pressing and holding I. There's even a little password screen that comes on where you can set that password manually if you want to add an extra layer of security. Two cool things to mention here before we move on with the review. One is at the bottom of the display, you'll find a USB port down here that you can use to power your phone. So if you put a little phone mount on either side of the handle, you'll find a great way to actually get some charge there while you drive. The other thing is how customizable the settings are in this. We'll probably talk more about this later, but if you hold down the plus and minus button and watch the display, you'll see it click over to this like I don't know, super settings, cheat code menu, where you can change all of these little details of the bike. So you can clear trip odometers. If you change your wheels, you can change the diameter of those. You can change speed limits. If you want to make it more of a class 2 e-bike, you can fix the speed limits to that too. You can change the voltage on each pedal assist level. You can even change the number of pedal assist levels, which is nuts. Change your password, change the backlight if you want it brighter or dimmer during the day. Just a ton of power you don't see on all the other bikes out there. So something I really thought was pretty cool. So that's just a little bit about how this bike works. Let's talk some more about what it's like to actually ride this thing around. All right, the pros and cons, the meat and potatoes of this review, the stuff you really want to know. What do I like? What do I not like? Let's start with the pros, and the very first thing is how smooth the Black is. So that's one thing I cannot overstate. Because this is a mid-drive bike, because of the full suspension on this thing, because of those awesome tires and just the gel saddle and all that stuff combined makes for a very smooth riding experience. So obviously this thing is rugged, it's built for some adventures, it's built to kind of do some off-road stuff and just kind of encounter whatever obstacle you throw at it. But one thing I noticed over and over again is that this thing is smooth accelerating, and really more than like a hub drive bike that you may have seen on some fat tire bikes out there. Because of this mid-drive system, it feels more like you're pedaling with superpowers. You're pedaling with extra energy. It doesn't feel like you pedal and then boom, this thing kicks in and pushes you more. It feels like when you're pedaling a lot harder. It's kind of hard to explain if you don't have experience with both types of bikes. All the different pedal assist levels are really nice. You can really distinguish between all of them, and you can tweak those, which we'll get to in a second. No matter which level I was on, even going from a start on pedal assist 5, which on a lot of bikes is pretty scary because you just get this huge jolt of stuff. This, you pedal and it just feels like it kind of gracefully puts you into that high power. It doesn't feel like it just takes off like a rocket without you. The ride quality, whether it's just the electric assist or handling bumps and twists in the road or a little bit of off-road stuff, is just second to none. Pro number 2, which I just hinted at a second ago, is that the kind of the tunable, tweakable quality of the Black is really, really interesting in the e-bike space. So normally you get an e-bike, it's pretty much fixed. There you go. There's your pedal assist levels. There's the way your screen looks. But this, because of the system they use to show both in the display and all the different components on the bike, which are made to be kind of hot swappable and upgradable if you want, that makes for a really customized and personalized experience that I think a lot of bike nerds will really love. The thing I probably enjoyed the most just with the UI on the display is how you can actually change those pedal assist levels. If you feel like just having levels 1 through 3 or 1 through 5 is a little bit too restrictive or not nuanced enough, you can actually go as high as I think 9 or 10 different levels, which means when you're switching from level 1 to 3, you just get these slight variations in power, but that just allows you to fine tune it to exactly what you want. If you're into customizing stuff to fit just exactly the way you like things, I think you'll find a lot to like in the Modbikes Black. We mentioned this earlier too, but pro number 3 is going to be the full suspension on this thing, and it may give you a little bit too much confidence, but it's really, really great, especially if you're used to a bike with no suspension or just the front fork suspension. Having the air suspension in the back is something that you'll just really enjoy. It just makes that experience that much nicer. I found myself popping over curbs, speed bumps, little normal city like road stuff, even just like going down a few like trails and that sort of thing, which this isn't meant to be like a crazy like mountain bike bomber type bike, but pretty much anything I threw at it, it was like almost like I couldn't even tell that I was really doing anything crazy with this, and that can instill maybe a false sense of confidence. So don't be an idiot and do like jumps or go off ramps or something crazy with it. As far as handling like normal life adventures, some camping adventures and that sort of thing, the suspension on this is something I really enjoyed. As a little side note too, if you put this together yourself, Dora, the owner of Modbikes, told me you may want to take this to a bike shop and have them tune that rear suspension for you, just depending on the rider weight and who's going to be on this thing. It can really make that experience a lot more fine-tuned. Pro number 4 is going to be that rear rack, which is something that's fairly unusual for a bike like this. You don't see too many ruggedized mountain bike style bikes that have a rear rack system built into it that's designed with a lot of flexibility in mind. So what's special about this rack is it isn't just an aftermarket accessory where you put a rack on and then you can just kind of figure out how to like duct tape or strap on some stuff onto that thing, but it's actually made with some modular things in mind. This is a Modbikes bag that they actually sell on their site that's especially awesome if you do any sort of adventuring around town where you need to stow some stuff or run to the store, just carry some stuff. It's fairly weather resistant. It's got these little side pockets with fold out bags, kind of like saddle bags that you can do on both sides. But what's nice about this is, again, I know they sell stuff like this for all sorts of rear racks, but this one is especially made for the rack that's on the back of this, where it just slides and clicks in. It has a little quick release that makes it easy to take on and off, but it's just an extra feature like this, along with some of the other accessories they have. I know they have some child seats and things like that as well. But it adds just some extra utility to this kind of ruggedized mountain bike. Again, it's a package you don't normally see together, and I found that pretty compelling. Pro number 5 is the last thing I'll mention here, and it may all be in the eye of the beholder, but this thing weighs about 65 pounds. Because of the way the motor sits, I swear to you that it feels lighter than other bikes that are similar in size. Now, you'll find bikes ranging 60 pounds all the way up to 80 pounds in this kind of class of e-bike, but just something about the way these components are arranged, it makes it a lot easier to get up and down the truck, a lot easier to maneuver around. Those hub drive motors a lot of times that are in that back tire just make for kind of an awkward experience trying to transport the thing. But all these great components built in this thing, I swear it feels lighter. I know that's nuts. It's probably kind of a ridiculous thing to put in this review, but that's something that stood out to me and something I think that you'll like too. Okay, we talked about all the good stuff. What about the bad stuff? Is there anything that would give me pause? And I'd say, yeah, there probably are a few things that you should consider if you're considering this bike. The first con that comes to mind to me is going to depend a lot on your riding style, and that is the lack of a throttle with a mid-drive system like this. So I know bike guys, a lot of my buddies that have e-bikes, they swear up and down the mid-drive is the way to go. And it feels super smooth, and I've really enjoyed it on this. But I have to admit, I do miss the throttle that a lot of the hub drive motors have. You might see that feature where there's like a twist handle or a little button that you push to just add electric power to the bike without pedaling at all. Because this is a mid-drive system, it is missing that. Now, you don't necessarily need it because you have all that power going into your pedaling where it's doing most of the work for you anyway. But sometimes just getting off to a start or going up a hill, I found that I did miss just being able to just hit that throttle and then start pedaling. That's a feature I missed, just more out of the mid-drive system that the Black uses. Another thing I did notice too is that getting all the way up to full power with this, reaching those top speeds that you really like to see in an e-bike, I had to do a whole lot of pedaling to do that. And again, it's a mid-drive system. That's what you would expect to see in something like this. But I found myself pedaling quite a bit to try to maintain anything close to 20 miles an hour, and even had a hard time getting above that, even though this is technically a level 3 bike. Dor, the owner of Mod Bikes, told me that just changing out the gearing, which is fairly simple for the chain, will help you reach those higher speeds if you want. It came from the factory with some different gearing, but that's one thing I thought, man, I'm just gonna be hitting 27 miles an hour all the time on this because it's level 3. That wasn't the case in my testing. Not a big deal because I think anything over 20 is scary anyway, but something worth knowing. Con number 2 has to do with the battery, and this is a pretty minor concern here, but there's 2 minor things worth noticing. The first, I'll just get out of the way because it's kind of goofy, but if you notice that cool kind of pinstripe look that you see with the black label on there and the cursive writing, it's a really awesome design touch in the bike. But I noticed on the battery, it's a sticker that's applied to it, and because the battery has different ridges, I noticed that sticker sometimes is already starting to kind of pop up over time and lose its adhesive, where I'm pretty sure after a year with this thing, a lot of that can be scraped off or will fall off. Maybe that's just with my model, I don't know, but that's something that every time I get on it, I kind of push that sticker back down because I want it to, you know, stay looking cool and everything. Ridiculous concern, I know, but something worth noting. The other thing, which is probably just a little bit bigger of a concern, is putting the battery on and off if you take it off to charge. And you can charge it just by plugging it in while leaving the battery connected, but I did notice that getting it back on and locking it in place is a little bit more fidgety than I've seen on some e-bikes where it looks like it's locked in, but if you kind of twist it enough, it'll just pop right back out. With a little bit of finesse, I was able to get it totally locked in every time I've put it on there, but that's something I have run into every time I've taken that battery on and off. Con number 3, and this is our last con, is the price. And that's something you would probably expect because this is an expensive bike, at least compared to like a lower end e-bike or the e-bikes you may see more often on Instagram or social media ads, that sort of thing. Those frequently are a race to the bottom, cheaper components, built to be entry level and not used as much. But you're paying for a premium bike here. You're paying for full suspension. You're paying for a 60-mile range. You're paying for 5 years of warranty and all that stuff. It's obvious that a lot of love went into this design, that a lot of love is involved with this company. Mod Bikes is really great. They have some really compelling products, and these things are built to be daily drivers. It's built to be something that you're putting tons of miles on and using all the time and having some adventures with, and it's built to be more ruggedized and have features that will last longer than the entry-level stuff. So if you're just getting into e-bikes, this may or may not feel like a high price to you. For me, it's about right for what you're getting, but that's something you'll want to weigh out in the scheme of things. All right, so you've heard all my pros, you heard all my cons, and what you want to know is, should you get this thing? And I think that a lot of that depends on you personally. If you're looking for a mid-drive bike and that sort of experience, if you're looking for these upgraded components that you'll really enjoy, I think this is an awesome option. I've really enjoyed it. Super powerful, a ton of fun to drive around. I really dig the look of it. I just feel like it has kind of this classic meets modern vibe that just speaks to me in a lot of ways. And I think it's something that you can have a lot of adventures with. But if you're looking for something that's more of like a fat tire bike or something more entry level or something that you'll just be kind of riding around the neighborhood, you may want to look at something like the Mod Bikes Easy or a fat tire bike like that that's more geared towards just a casual experience, not built to be a daily driver or have all these features you may never enjoy. But Full suspension awesomeness. The Mod Bikes Black is super cool. Definitely something I think you'll enjoy. That's it for this review. I hope it was helpful for you. Hey, let me know what you think about this bike, or let me know what bike you ride down in the comments. I'd love to hear about that. If you dug this review, be sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel out a ton. And be sure to subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. We'll see you next time.